Hello and welcome to the Say I Do It with Fuze podcast, which is on location today, the headquarters of Tie the Knot Scotland in Glasgow, and we are thrilled to have with us the editor of Tie the Knot Scotland magazine, Beth Forsyth, and the assistant editor, MacDonald. Ladies, thank you very much for having us.
Thanks for coming along to the crazy East End of Glasgow.
The HQ and the epicentre. So, well, we should start out by getting you to introduce yourselves and a little bit about your history with the magazine, the Wedding Association in general, I guess.
How far do you want to go back? I actually started, believe it or not, working for what was then the Best Scottish Weddings magazine back 2002.
Way back.
And at that point, I was a very sort of junior office role, sort of making cups of tea, which I still do.
She did for us, you should say. A very nice approach too.
And doing things like chasing advertising with all paid subscriptions. Done that for a number of years, along with working on another title, and then eventually the role opened up as editor around about 2010, 2011. So I jumped at the opportunity, who wouldn't?
Wow.
And then, yes, I've been editing the title for the best part of
So it was kind of
15 years.
and various other roles before the big role.
Yeah. So the big brand. Then we rebranded. We were Best Scottish Weddings for a number of years, and then we rebranded to Time of Scotland in the 2017, maybe 16. Can't quite get it for us. But yes, since then, we've been Time of Scotland, and I've been at the helm working with a wonderful team like Eve, our assistant editor.
And you're the opposite, Eve, because you're the new year on Time Out.
I'm the newbie on the team. So I have been here since January. But my kind of interest in the wedding industry definitely started a long time before that. I mean, lots of lovely dresses, beautiful venues all across Scotland. Of course, celebrants as well. And I got married last year, so I was kind of in the throw of it, planning my own wedding. So I think that's kind of helped me in terms of this role, knowing what brides are looking for as well as grooms in terms of the planning process. So, yeah.
You're a bit like me, because my wedding was 3 years ago, so a lot of it is still fresh for me, being the groom and the bride. And I think it does help when you're chatting with couples and you kind of know the things that you think of, the things that were important to you.
Exactly. And I think as well, getting engaged is very exciting. And then you go, oh gosh, how do I plan your wedding? And it is things like Tie the Knot Scotland that you turn to for planning advice, because, the wedding industry is pretty overwhelming unless you've got the kind of best of the best in front of you. Don't know where to start. So, yeah.
Well, that's what we're here to help with on this episode, really, is just chatting about how we as celebrants work with people like yourselves to help guide couples and make sure they are in the know, they've got the right people around them, they've got the right support around them, and essentially there's no such thing as a stupid question when it comes to planning weddings. Yeah. So in terms of your association with us here at Fuze Ceremonies, Beth, how did that begin, and how have we developed our relationship between ourselves, if you like?
So then we went to Fuze launch.
So it's 2012.
2012. So I think pretty much since then we've had some sort of relationship. And as soon as you watch the sort of wedding ceremony aspect of Fuze, I think you turn to us to advertise your celebrants, your ceremonies. And from there, the sort of process of collaboration began. But especially since you took up the role of brand ambassador, George, we've worked really closely together. And to be honest, Fuze make our lives easy, because we know who to turn to if you need information on ceremonies and the legalities of getting married quickly. So, we've worked closely together for a good number of years now.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd about 100%. I mean, I wasn't with Fuze in 2012. It's 2017 when I joined. But back then, the humanist angle of getting married was only, it was 2005 that it became legal in Scotland, that you could get married with a humanist celebrant. And up to then, there really wasn't much choice. I think Fuze started to break the mold. There's much choice now, a lot of choice now. And that's great. There's always enough weddings to go around. That's right, always. Because people connect with the celebrant as much as the organisation. But yeah, since I know you guys would have quite collaborated with people Fuze HQ prior to, but yeah, since my role, definitely taken it to a different level, I think. Just being kind of responsive to what you need. And, it's a two-way street, of course, and of course it gets us great editorial coverage. Also, let's not be kid ourselves on the house. However, it's just great to be able to work with like-minded people, because we're both in the same industry after all. And the stories have ranged far and wide for helping you with legal stuff, symbolic gestures. We've mentioned a lot of that already in the pre-chat, as well as a wonderful couple to make it work.
Yes.
In terms of the magazine, you're working with people like us. Like, how does that then enhance the product you're offering? Where you're getting expert guidance from, people like yourself, George, our team.
Okay. Added so much value. Contrary to what a lot of people think, when I tell them I edit a wedding magazine, one of the first things they say to me, if they don't know me, is, do you go to a lot of weddings then? And other than the ones I'm invited to, I have to say, no, I don't spend my life going to weddings, sadly. I'm not a professional wedding crasher, so we actually have to rely on people that do attend the weddings, like celebrants, like the photographers, to be our funnels of knowledge. Celebrants in particular, you're at weddings day in, day out, and you've got one of the closest supplier relationships with the couples.
Yeah.
And you really get to grips with what's going on in the industry, and you get to experience what couples are genuinely asking for. And then in turn, you bring that information back to us. So, we couldn't put together the magazine without the input of people in the industry, be it people at the venues, the celebrants, the photographers.
Yeah.
And I've learned so much from them because, as I say, don't go to weddings. Dear.
Lovely, Llewellyn.
I think as well, like, what comes across is how genuine and interested you guys are in the wedding industry. When we ask you for tips or advice, that passion and creativity definitely shines through, and that kind of helps us write features as well. If we get information in that's real bland and dry and our couples have heard it all before, then we're a bit like, well, there's not a feature in there. Whereas celebrants like yourselves with Fuze, there's always new ideas of how couples can make it more personal for them, or new elements that they can incorporate in their ceremonies, and that helps us help couples in turn.
And I think that's one of the reasons we've really upped our game on our own website in these last couple of years, in particular our kind of blogs and news stories, with our team get involved. So you'll see stuff on the blog section. When I refreshed our website last year, you literally just click it. If you want to see just symbolic gestures blogs, you click that. If you want to see just newsletter blogs, click that, and so on and so on. One of the big things couples want to know is the gestures, what they want to kind of include in their ceremony and get great. So that's been really useful. And then when we submit, I've done it a few times actually, I remember, and we've submitted as something you guys want back, and I'll also put a blog link to just to give you more kind of substance to
Add it.
and just steal away what you want.
Do you think there's a particular thing that couples are interested in finding out about more than others?
One of the top performing pieces of content on our site is how to fill in the N10 form. It's the one thing, it really seems to flummox couples. I think they're just faced with these boxes on a sheet of paper, and what to do, even though for a lot of it is quite simple information, but I think when there's so much invested in it, they're terrified of making mistakes.
Yeah, you want to get it right.
And I think because they've went on the really creative part of planning, picking their lovely venue and decor and all that, and then there's this legal form in front of them, and grab it the spot. That is definitely one of our most clicked articles, and something even I asked my celebrant about on the lead up to our wedding. I'm like, when do we do it? How do we fill it out? It's most.
Well, I think the thing it's actually speed probably rates the taking it back a step as someone's getting married to a female hydro, but they live in North Lanarkshire.
Yes,
it's quite at the venue. It's always an upper one. Oh, really? Then so I just walk out in my local high street to the thought in there. Let's go. We talk about it really early
all the time. And a couple I spoke to last night on a video call who live in London but getting married in Glasgow. He said, "Well, we checked in the registry office down here. There's nothing we need to do." I said, "No, they cannot." So for you guys, when it comes to people like myself and George, how integral are we in, giving the couples the experience that they want on their day?
I mean, I think you're one of the most important contributors to a wedding. I mean, if not the, because without a celebrant or officiant to lead the ceremony, it's just really, you're just paying for the right party. Also, as I sort of touched on before, a celebrant has probably the closest interaction out of all the suppliers, because you really get to grips with their full relationship. You get to share the love story. You get to sort of guide them in all aspects of planning, and then I'm sure they'll tap into you guys for advice on photography, serving for their dessert. Like you get asked all sorts of questions because you become such a trusted point of contact. And as I say, that you're obviously on hand to deal with all the complicated legal paperwork as well.
Yeah.
So
I think a human celebrant as well kind of sets the tone for the day. That's why you pick a specific celebrant if you want funny kind of ceremony, if you want really a heartfelt one or a mix, and that's how you gel with your celebrant. So I mean, no pressure of setting the tone for the entire day,
But I do say that to couples though, because you're still trying to banish that notion on a wedding day that the ceremony is the bit you have to sit through. That's the whole reason why you're here. So the ceremony should set the tone. So if you want it to be a fun day, which is obviously going to be afterwards, but it should begin as soon as the bridal party make their entrance and go from there. And that's what loads of couples are like. Yeah, great. Let's go for it.
let's get the shots on the go.
It's usually after the scene.
Yes.
I know you should point out you've got to keep sight of mind when you're. So probably not too many shots before the ceremony.
But I like to, like you said, Alan, it's like people feel at some ceremonies they're enduring it.
Yeah.
So I think what we do is we say, well, listen, it'll be a mix. Generally speaking, it's a mix of light-hearted, fun elements, but professional and serious as well. And sentimental. Even the hardest of big groups usually cry.
Well, I have said, and I say this to every couple, I always come armed with a spare packet of tissues, as I know you do as well, George. And I don't know about you, but I have used those for group assault more than brides.
As the type of content that does very well on a trying boom dust. You might get on our
The wee boy there now with bro, you married my mummy. They take the sight.
Or this dog coming in with the tux or the kill or something.
you show.
Oh, very awesome. Yeah.
I think it's also been good, Beth, back to the relationship with the magazine as well as that kind of the real life wedding story calls, which is probably 50-50. I mean, I know after we'll drop this is a great one. Consider that.
Yeah.
And then sometimes, in fact, email the other day saying you've got one of my couple times. I didn't know they were getting featured. So that's a wee surprise. We think, great. So what we've been doing is trying to do like a Fuze version of their blog on our site and do that kind of cross-linking, which I think is really good,
Definitely. No, we're looking to real wings come from a variety of sources. So obviously, suppliers suggested to us, photographers, venues come to us with suggestions as well.
Couples, was that long?
Themselves, of course, yeah.
Was Joel and Emma from them, or was it from?
I know Emma through my cousin. And we were looking to kind of do a venue case study on Cornwall. And I'd seen a few of their pictures and I just thought it's heard of it. And their story's so lovely as well. You're all went to school together. And so, I think that's what people enjoy reading. When they're planning their own wedding, they get to see real weddings as such, And
I think I ended up Emma's sister's booked me for our wedding next year.
Good.
He did my friend's wedding, he did my sister's wedding. Sometimes I even had trouble saying, by the way, my brother's getting married next year, so this is a good audition for you.
So we like to do the wee talk to camera bits. Because, if you're booking a photographer, you want to see their photos. If you're booking a video before, you want to see what they could do. You want to see the florist, you want to see the flowers. I definitely think someone wants to hear your voice. If you see
do you know, that's a good point. When I was planning my wedding, when I went onto Celebrant's Instagram page and there was only pictures of the couple, it sort of put me off because I was like, that's lovely, but I want to see you in person. How does your voice travel? What's your presence like?
What's the vibe? What vibe do
just what do you look like? Like, not that it matters, but just so you've got a face to a name and you feel more connected and familiar with them.
And the celebrant's the one role where the couple are investing in you as a personality. Obviously, you can like the work of another supplier, but you maybe don't hit off with them as people for whatever reason. But certainly for people like George and myself, it is the person. And, the videos certainly work. I know on my Instagram and TikTok, so many people say, we really liked your videos. I actually had a couple last week that we hadn't spoken, we hadn't had a meeting, we hadn't had a conversation, and they literally said, we just saw your videos and just said, he's the young girl. And that's great. It's such a nice thing to hear as well.
I feel like they know you. If you haven't put in the legwork, and that's like...
She often likes it as well, which is really, really nice. But Beth, with you being at the magazine for as long as you have, you obviously have seen a lot change.
Seen so many trends come and go.
Yeah.
And things come back round again. Especially styles of wedding dresses. I've seen things come and go. And then the one that sort of came back in this year, which I'd seen probably not that long after I started, was the basque waist, which is a sort of dipped waistline above the hips. That's back in a big way. It's only taken them long, the best part of 20 years. It just shows you how things come and go. And I suppose how many years ago? For like 15 years ago, chocolate fountains were a big deal. But do you ever see one of them at a wedding now? No.
Crisp ball.
Just be sure. I mean, I should say I'm a savvy gal. It's still probably hard. Yeah, I would.
We'd hear a crisp ball at our wedding in 2022, and it had probably perhaps we sort of had it where it was visible but not too visible. So it ended up we were living off those weeks.
And the thing is about, I suppose, ceremony, the basic legal declaration is all you have to have. I mean, even exchanging the rings doesn't have to.
That's funny because people say that is an actual legal process.
Yeah.
I think I've had it once where a group didn't take a ring because he just was a jewellery wearer, and I think the job he had, he'd have to take off every day, so he didn't bother. I think he got a watch.
Seen that rise in trends,
So I think most of the time it's it's even as simple as not the stuff.
The other one as well is the legal vows do not contain I do.
Yeah, no, we're guilty of using the phrase I do as well, but yeah.
But a lot of couple are like, oh, well, can we have that? What about we say I do? As that something, again, that isn't something that is required by law or needs to happen. Yeah, but again, generally, people think, that's something about it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Do you find that there's a trend towards humanist ceremonies generally now in Scotland over and above or separate from civil ceremonies or religious ceremonies?
I mean, I would say, yes, high percentage of the ceremonies we encounter these days and we feature are humanist-led or celebrant-led. Celebrant-led.
Sometimes.
Yeah, members-led. So you can't sort of discriminate the interface, kind of celebrants are popular as well. Yeah. But I mean, I have to be honest, there has been a bit of a micro trend for registry office weddings that we've seen. That's what been over the last few months. That's been one of the most searched for terms on our site. Is registry office wedding Glasgow. And I've obviously because quite a few.
Because it's nice.
And Glasgow's well, there's been quite a few influencers that have had that sort of street style photography coming out to city chambers, etc.
Mini dress on.
Yeah, and I think that's more a big influence. And it could be that they're then going off to actually have the wedding proper overseas. Yeah.
And from there,
or something, so they do the legalities.
Like section to see in a bigger venue that
that's maybe a bit of a change towards that.
Yeah.
Like as cool because you see the Glasgow Side Chambers.
There's a few nice ones around going there, and in Edinburgh as well.
It's about the around
and that's no disrespect to any local council. Can you put that?
No, not at all.
We've got some beautiful rooms as well. Last few cities in the country. I think it's a big choice, isn't it? If that suits someone, then I'll have it that way. 100%.
Well, we always say that everything you do within your ceremony, certainly anyway, should do because you want to do it.
Yeah, don't you pressure just if a hand fasting doesn't resonate with you, don't
you do still get maybe the same jobs in the odd wedding, but they just don't fancy any of the support just not too for any infant. But it doesn't make any less of a ceremony than those who want, for you.
I found that where there's been, it's probably true to say that, statistics wise, it's still the average age of a couple getting married is, I think it's 34 for a male, 32 or something for a lady. Mm-hmm. in Scotland for a good number of years now. And I think what happens is they have a kind of circle of friends. So it's almost like a domino effect.
Yeah.
Like they've got about 5 or 6 weddings in the same year.
Yo, I
You know?
work in sales and process.
And then, of course, some couples then say, "Oh, I'm not having the candles because she had that." Well, I'm not having the hang fast because he had that. So you kind of just try to say, well, actually, if it's not for you, don't have it.
Yeah.
But it's the first thing I'd say. And second thing is, well, you always listen to what they're set up, whether it's a couple with kids, without kids, with pets or a pet.
Okay.
And one of my favourite recent gestures, and you might have seen this about, is we've called it the mother's kiss.
I was going to mention it, yeah, that is like that.
I absolutely love this one, and where the mum's invited up. So after their sort of meeting vows, it goes something like, "Can I have X and Y? Please join their son and daughter," what the combination is. And so these two wonderful ladies were the first people in the world to kiss and hold their son and daughter. So it's only right before their son and daughter had their first legal kiss as a married couple that they get from their last kiss as a single person. So mums, with all the love in the world, please give your son and daughter a hug and kiss. Absolutely. Honestly.
You made me cry with that first video you put up. Then I saw George's video on his Instagram.
Yeah, and a lot of comments about that.
Very nice.
That's the big thing as well. I think that's why we do a lot of stuff on Instagram as well, which would never have happened 12 years ago when we were first out. It's not even so many years ago when we first started, Beth, is that I think it gives great inspiration to future couples.
Yeah.
Whether they get married by us or not, I think it's just a nice thing you do, is to share the love.
Absolutely.
You know, and you'll see that with, I'm sure, with social media. It's probably fair to say social media has changed the what?
Changed a lot.
It's changed the way for this way, isn't it? But you see mostly on that, Beth.
Yes, it can be overwhelming. Not just for us, because if we've got so much to keep up, so many platforms to keep on top of. But I mean, there's no doubt. As soon as you get engaged, your algorithm knows. And then the 2 hours we're losing to Instagram and TikTok a day become 4 hours. But no, they are. It's great for.
I think you should say it is down to like raw footage. Like that's what couples want to see. Real things are happening. Like when I was planning my wedding, my husband was very against like anything salty or over the top. He's like, "No, I don't want to try your own vows. I want to do this." Yeah. And I was like, "Right, we're going to need to think of something. Like I want it to be more interactive."
Right.
So we were kind of scrolling through Instagram, and it was 3 reasons that came up. So we wrote down our 3 reasons. They hit them secret until the day. Like even to this day, he's like, "You know what? I'm so glad we did that." But we wouldn't have seen that had it not been for our wedding.
Oh, I was going to say, it's interesting that that's where you found that was actually on Instagram, and how many other couples are just scrolling through it again. So it said Beth, the algorithm, and something like that pops up, and you just think, "Oh, brilliant."
That'll work, Annie. Yeah. Another one that wasn't on Instagram, but it was a kind of idea with one of your celebrants had told us, it was your their side do's.
Yeah, I like that, sir.
So it was Yvonne Hannah. She had said that it was a couple, and they was the idea to her. I don't know if they've maybe seen it on social media, but it was things that they wished for. So, for example, the groom said, "Well, I wish that every time I make so and so a cup of tea, she finishes it. Is this something you come and she'll do?" And she'll go, "Okay, I do." So rather than having those I do's of a movie that we spoke about, it's a little bit more personal.
Like some more of an I will.
Yeah, I will. Yeah.
Yeah.
Watch out for that being our next vlog.
Yeah.
On the Fuze series, ruggeds and well, it is one of our celebrants, so we're good enough to do anything. Yep. Bringing it to a new audience.
Girls, I want to talk about the Scottish Wedding Show, the big one at the SEC, which is a big event for us and for yourselves. And we, in the past, on 2 occasions, been part of the alleged Talk Tying the Knot stage, which you've hosted. Beth, how did that segment sort of come about, and why is it so important? Why do couples want to come along and witness it when they're at the show?
I mean, I suppose it came about because TED Talks were huge at the time. I also Scottish Wedding Show recognised that the 200 plus exhibitors they have are a wealth of knowledge, so they thought it made complete sense to combine the two, and I wholeheartedly agreed with them. And we've been the media partner of the show since the early 2020s. So when they approached us to collaborate with them on it, we jumped to the chance. So since February 2022, which is over 3 years ago now, scary thought, we've been putting them together twice a year, with the aim of them being impartial sessions, so like no hard sell, filled with advice and inspiration to cover all sorts of wedding planning topics. Two key content pillars we always include are bridal wear and ceremonies, of course. But along the way, we've covered everything from content creation to cakes, venue decor, and to flowers and everything in between. And then the first one was February 2022, and Fuze were the first people I approached to take up.
I love that email.
Take up the slot, yeah.
I was like, you sent that email, I thought, this is just so up the street. Yeah. It really.
Well, that was the first show back after, we'll say it's a bad word, the pandemic.
Yeah.
So there was just such a real buzz at that show. I mean, from this anyway, but I think it was like turbocharged because all the exhibitors were so buzzing to be back, and everyone was excited to be out the house and was able to plan a wedding.
You remember this? I mean, before at the show, so a double kind of celebration.
Yeah. So I think that first, correct me if I'm wrong, I think that first one we focused on off the back of the content, the M10 form content, being continually one of our strongest performing pieces. We thought the legal side of things is the great unknown. So I think we focused on that.
The ceremony. I think there's a bit of the kind of how you put a ceremony together.
Yeah.
It's sort of main pillars. So the legal's definitely love story. It's a create a love story of a couple and touch slightly on symbolic gestures, but we kept it to the legals primarily.
Yeah.
And then the second one that we came along, I think we actually badged up as being like a podcast session or
That's right, we did, yeah.
It's like,
But that chat is on a CIU with Fuze podcast series, so if you always to listen to it, you can
state that. But no, the team have enjoyed doing it because we generally have, because we have a big team of upwards of 70 celebrants now, it's close to 70, 60 odd anyway. Then we generally man it like 2 in the morning, 2 in the afternoon.
Yeah.
So you kind of got 8 celebrants get that. You get an audience of the public. So it was really easy to pick some people to go on the stand, you know. So really pleased that we collaborated on that.
Yeah. And I think it's quite similar to what we do with features in the magazine in a way, is that the aim is to demystify and simplify what is the most important part of the wedding in a fun and accessible way. For instance, I know like celebrants we've had involved often encourage people, audience participation.
And stuff.
Yeah, to like get up and perhaps take part in a hand fasting or jump up in the room or show some other ritual or tradition. But I know I always remember people are always really quite shy, quite know what they're getting into. Yeah. So actually I've been hand fasting to probably more of our colleagues there.
What I remember also happened though at the shows is that because like couples of the celebrants doing the presentations came along to see them, so it was a bit of kind of fandom.
Selfies, rotting ass after. So we started the plan, what you think might be in the next one. I know we're still
halfway, to be honest. So it's not October. So the Scottish Wedding Show, we tend to take a wee hiatus from plans for a few weeks because the QD Events gang who put together the show, they've been really busy in the run up to the Scottish Wedding Show with their other shows as well. So we usually take a wee breather for the sort of early spring part, and then we're planning to get our teeth back into the autumn sessions over the summer, which will be here before we know it. Yeah. So yeah, I'm not sure what will be in store, but it'll be probably more of the same. We'll definitely have a ceremony slot. Chances are we'll have bridal wear again, but yeah, the rest is still TBC. Still TBC.
It's good to get the so there's new categories along here as well.
Yeah.
Or maybe old things coming back categories.
Exactly, I have learned that it's a bit of a cyclical industry, what wasn't in fashion 10 years ago will be back in fashion. Yeah. And then obviously the industry is always changing and evolving, especially because of all the new technologies now. There's there's things 10 years ago we would never have thought of that people have, like audio guest books. But in one set theatre, one set creators,
Dressers.
dressers. So it's a continually evolving.
I always say when I see the bridal dresser, when I like it, it makes me smile because it means they're going to be pretty much on time.
And the guys can get dressers as well now because we're all Scottish.
How you got gas?
I
totally get it.
I mean, actually, there's under that. There are photographs of, because we the dual photographer already. So one of them came into the room and there's a picture of my best man and one of my groomsmen sorting out turbans, blades, kilts, all the rest of it. So yeah, and you know, if the kilt is the first time of your wedding, rather it's the first time you've had the kilt on, or for the first time in a long time, aye, groom's dresses.
And the thing is, it's not just a matter of putting it on. You needed to look better than it's ever looked before, because the photos are going to immortalise it forever. I know, so I'd argue that there's actually more for a groom if he's wearing a kilt and a plate. There's more for a groom to put on than a bride.
Yeah.
So, more to get flummoxed with.
So have you had feedback that you having celebrants on the stage has really helped couples when it comes to planning the ceremony, getting their hair around all the
Absolutely, because as I say, it seems to be the part that feels most alien to couples. Like, you can organise, most people have been at a party, been at a fancy dinner, so they know what's involved, can guess what's involved, but the ceremony is the part that they're most clueless about.
Yeah, and as the feedback, certainly I get a lot when you speak to a couple who are maybe inquiring about celebrating, and well, they know they need a dress and rules wear, and they need flowers or a cake and entertainment and a meal and all these things. But we know we need to do this bit, but we don't really know how to get it. Or so we meet to shoot this weddings before, and they know they like them, but they maybe don't know the specific ins and outs as to how it got to.
So see, when you go off planning a wedding and you go to a wedding, you're not in that detail.
Yeah.
I don't know if you, during your wedding planning, were at a wedding at all.
Yeah, definitely.
But you looked at it completely different eyes.
Yes.
Yeah.
You're just thinking about your pals and how happy you are.
Exactly. There's actually two weddings I went to. One just before I got engaged and one after I got engaged. And I was definitely looking at the ceremonies through a different light.
Yeah.
You know, as a guest, you're just enjoying it. You're there for the ride, listening to lovely stories.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas after I'd got engaged, I was a bit like, oh, I quite like that. But no, that bit's too long. I think I'd maybe cut that down, or that bit was really nice. So
Yeah, you reel stuff in as much as out.
Yeah.
I definitely don't want that.
Yeah,
I mean, that's fine. Other people were quite decisive about that.
one thing for us, we had been to a wedding here. The ceremony was an hour and a half.
Oh, wow.
Was that celebrant wedding? It was. It was a lovely ceremony. You know, we got to learn a lot about the couple, but they did it to us.
Because you must have learned everything. Life story.
Yeah,
Okay.
it was too long.
But that 45 minutes is my
I think you do. My limit is about 40. Exactly.
Yes. So,
and I'm sure people need the toilet.
yeah, it's the thought a lot of them will be to the bar before the ceremony kicks off.
So when you think of all the ceremonies and the real life stories you've covered in the magazine in respective time, is there anything that sticks out as being particularly memorable for whatever reason?
So as I said at the beginning, I've only been here since January, so kind of getting to grips with the magazine and everything, I've had the lovely job of going back over and being like weddings that we've covered, which such a chore. You can imagine eating all these stuff, you guys. And one that kind of stood out for me was Robin and James' ceremony at Harran House, which was last June. So George shares that with us initially. So the bride was a huge Disney fan. They got engaged in Florida, so they tried to kind of add different elements of Disney to their big day. So I think there was a couple of bits in the ceremony. You know, she got her dress from everyday property group Bridal. So, and it was through the Disney collection. So I think, you know, as you kind of touched on here, adding elements of things that are personal to your ceremony is great. But one of the things when I was reading through it that really made me laugh was the groom said, "I do," before he was even asked. He became so excited to be like, "Yeah, let's be my boo Mike." And I think that's so lovely to get that genuine emotion across. And that must be nice as a celebrant as well, to be like, "Oh, my couples are
are really excited to be here. So, yeah.
As they should be.
Yeah, I think there is a rise of people being a bit more sentimental as well. You know, they want to capture every single year and day so they don't forget it. And whether that is their celebrant, you know, sending through the ceremony after, but you know, that they drip and it's
the secret reasons version.
exactly like the secret version, or a content creator getting behind the scenes shots that they didn't see, videographers, photographers. I think there is a rise in people going, you know, we want to look back on this day, however many days to come.
QR codes, you know, like couples having wedding websites, or
That's a RSVP.
UV type photos about how was our wedding like for you. There is in your pictures from class.
There's apps that can compile all that shit to make life easier for you as well. So, there's loads that aspects of the industry is evolving and growing. So,
Couples a lot are asking me as well now if I can ask guests to take a picture of themselves at their seats before the ceremony begins, and then, you know, either do the QR code thing, or there's a WhatsApp group, and it's just like, and then we message beside it, congratulations on the 20 days. Particularly if it's, you know, brides who aren't in the room, you know, and they're seeing everyone gathering.
Nah, I've seen that. I think it's what you talk about anyway on the little announcement we do before the ceremony. Please put your phones away. We've got these professionals capturing it. But before you do that, take a wee selfie with the person next to you to send it through your system now, send it to Red Groom, and they can wake up to or something.
I think that's just great as well, like, because there is such an array of professionals that can capture a wedding these days. The content creator, obviously, the photographer, the videographer, and they all do different things. And it is better where, like, you've not got your phone out all the time, and especially if you're like a key part of the bridal party. Bride or group doesn't need their phone. If there's a content where it's everybody they know and love that should be in that room.
A bride went to say, you got to talk. I'm during the ceremony, and her phone goes off. She's got her phone, and she's got a dress on his pockets, and she's got a phone that was on in her pocket. And the first thing she goes, "Oh my God, I'm so sorry." I said, "Hold on, who's phoning you?" Everyone is here. This is a PGI call or something.
But it's those moments that you just laugh and do kind of make it your own, you know. You just, that's the kind of thing you'll look back like, do you remember that time I got a phone call during our wedding?
Well, those are the bits that people will remember, you know. And then with all these advances and changes, you know, what about the role of Tylenol Scotland within that, whether it be print form, digital form, via social media, you know, how in tech was your role and how is that changed?
Well, for those who don't know, we recently launched our website to incorporate a fully searchable directory. We felt Scotland was lacking that, so we've launched that sort of late spring, early summer last year. Because there's quite an amazing statistic that 96% of Scots marry in Scotland.
Right.
So we knew we were ready to serve an audience. An engaged audience, quite literally.
In every sense.
But when we discovered that statistic, we're like, wow, it really is. We do have a captive readership, a captive audience. So we're intending to continue growing and investing in the directory and investing in growing our social media channels, which is the plan.
Definitely. And I think as well, one of the things for us is we listen to the information we get. So whether that's from suppliers and what they predict is going to happen in the wedding industry, or even what, you know, couples are doing or not doing. I think that first-hand kind of feedback is so vital for us, because we don't want to create content that's not, you know, exactly. And we want to be a magazine where it supports what they want. So we definitely try and keep on top of everything that's popular in the halls alongside it.
And especially with celebrant-led ceremonies, because the scope of things you can do is so broad and is only increasing.
Exactly. I mean, one thing I would say, a key bit of advice, is that don't be afraid to ask questions. There's no such thing as a silly question when you're organising and planning something you don't know. Because I mean, anything's possible with a humanist ceremony, you know, aside from the basic legal declarations. The sky's the limit.
Yeah, I do say that to couples. The only limit is your imagination. And don't be afraid to ask questions because you've never done it before, or at the very least, you've maybe ever done it this way before.
Yeah.
So, we're the experts. We're there to keep you right and answer the question. I will say if I don't know the answer to the question, I'll get it from someone who perhaps does. So
I think having that support is so important because when you plan a wedding, you get so excited about everything, and then the ceremony is the bit where you kind of go, oh, what do we do?
Yeah.
Like as you're saying, you've been married previously, so you don't know what to expect. But in reality, it is the most important bit. So having a supportive celebrant is so key.
And you
navigate you through.
I almost say to couples, like, there's almost two parts to this role. So number one is to write and deliver your wedding ceremony because that's why you paid money. But the other role is to be that little bit of a guiding hand along the way. Even if it's, I'm sure you're the same, George, but it's other aspects of a wedding. Maybe you're not involved with directly, but through your association, your couples might say, do you know what we do about, if it's evening entertainment meals or where people sit or, any of these kind of things? And you're always like, well, I'll give you the best advice I can, or you need to contact a supplier that who can.
I think that's what comes through in all of our reviews, though, is couples generally say we felt supported beyond the ceremony. We felt that no questions a daft question.
Yeah.
And recently, actually, that we're up, I think we're over something like 2,650 plus 5-star rated reviews now. And other organisations got that. And we just recently got 2 great awards so we use FIFO, for a worldwide company, and then they awarded us 2 awards. One was because of our continuous 5-star rating, and the other one, they only award the other one to 32 clients that they work with, and that was awarded through an audit from an external company they use. So we're really kind of chuffed for that because it's genuinely our couples that got us those awards and stuff like any other piece. But that's the kept compliments as well. So you get supported, no questions, a daft question, and the likes.
Best could I think I've had is it felt like a friend was managing.
Yes.
And that's
That's ultimate confidence.
Yeah, because then you go, how long have you known her? I'm thinking it's 10 years or whatever. It's like 4 months. Like, okay. So it's this job. Trying to so.
This is kind of an aside, but it was actually one of my favourite things planning a wedding was meeting my celebrant and going through our story. Because you don't kind of sit back and go,
you remember things you forgot.
Yeah, we love one another, and how did we get together? And you kind of revisit all those milestones, and it's up to you guys to kind of ask the right questions. When you come away going, that was really nice.
Trip in, maybe.
Yeah, made the right decision.
Or else when you send a script to a couple for them to check it over beforehand. I just feedback last night, and we said we just had a lovely Saturday night. We had a glass of wine. We sat together. We had loads of giggles. It's great. We're excited now to hear about life. And I said, well, if you're thinking that way, then I'm sure in the day you guess it all as well. So
that must be really rewarding.
It will be for me. It's the best thing. So as it goes, it's been really fascinating. Just tune the family over the wedding industry with you. It's been great. So if couples are listening to this and you're in the throes of wedding planning or you're newly engaged, you're maybe at that stage where you're like, you said it yourself, Eve. It's like, we're excited, we're getting married. Now we actually have to put it all together. If you've got a top tip almost for couples to focus on, particularly around the ceremony, what would your advice be?
First, I would probably suggest meet as many celebrants as you can be at a wedding show, because ultimately they're going to guide you through the most important part of your day. So if you can, meet them in person. If you can, equally a Zoom call, a Teams call, just have a little bit of FaceTime with them. And I know from speaking to celebrants that they won't be offended if you're not the right fit. Usually
you see another celebrant in Fuze or otherwise, that's like weird and whatnot.
Also, I'm not just to my colleagues. Somebody's not the right celebrant for you.
I don't do it. There's everybody see it on their organisation. They just say, I'm your
So we have a bit of banter where if a couple say, we've decided to go in a different direction, you go, that's fine, all the best. And then you see your colleagues' Instagram and it's like, I spoke to them. And you have a laugh about it, In a way, it's quite nice because if you got to know a couple over a very short Zoom call,
I think my tip is probably going to be the same one you hear all the time. Just have fun with it. You know, it doesn't have to be strict and regimental. It's just a reflection of the couple. And also just try and take more so during the ceremony, try and take a moment to just take it all in. You know, when you're signing the register, as you said, and we'll sit next to any person just married, go, okay, we did it.
I mean, that's usually the first time you have to have a kind of natural conversation with each other, because you won't see each other that morning, traditionally anyway. And then you're just sort of thrown right into it, you know, when the private party arrives. So, and it can be quite a nice moment. I suppose, George, from our perspective, you know, how important is it for couples to help make the ceremony really stand out and be the thing in the whole day that everybody comes away, it was fantastic.
Yeah, I always say to couples, you know, when you're chatting to guests, no bung many people, the hours after the ceremony, because you won't see everybody at once, of course. But when they're chatting to someone at 7 o'clock at night, you want them to be saying, I really loved that bit in the ceremony.
Yeah.
So my advice always is to say to them, if someone is saying, that was just you two.
That's what my wife and I got at ours. Their ceremony was just us.
And so whoever takes that up is going to be the great ceremony, really. So we'll present some ideas and thoughts and stuff. They get to know them, but the real X or Y out, then that's also.
But choosing a few ceremony seldom really helps them to bring that to life.
You'll get that in a year. Maybe you, I'll be sure.
I think it is just, you know, think outside the box. Don't go for the traditional unless you really want that. Like, expand your imagination and be as open as you can with the celebrant. And even sometimes when you're getting to know a couple of you hear a bit of the backstory and the things they all, if it's Disney or it's Star Wars or it's hill walking and all that, and then you draw on your experience and you think, we thought about incorporating, you know, this, that, or the other, and then it's like, you know, let's have a lightsaber hand fast. Whatever it may be. So I just be open to anything and don't sort of stereotype problems, I guess. Yeah. So if couples who are planning weddings are looking to find out a little bit more about Tie the Knot Scotland and how you guys can help, where can we find you?
Find us online at tie-the-knot.scots, and we're also on all social media platforms, and Tie the Knot Scotland, and we'll be back at the Scottish Wedding Show in October.
And you can find her out.
Of course, on DJ 56
And she'd mentioned as well, George, our own website as well, fuzeceremonies.co.uk.
Yep, which are at BB Fresh just the back end of last year. So it's literally even more spick and span. Like I said earlier, the blog section, or you can filter it in by topic and stuff like that, which really helps people. But most importantly, and they're still the only celebrant organisation that offers the live light checker, which is right in the first thing you see the for page, because we believe that that's where the journey starts. And you can put your date in, pick your area, and press search, and it gives you checks our diaries live, and it gives you who's available on that date.
Girls, thank you so much.
Thank you very much. It's been a pleasure having us.
Yeah, thank you for having us. And well, if you are lucky enough to be invited to one of our weddings, then make sure you feel very special. And thank you for taking the time to listen to this episode of the Say I Do Fuze podcast. And if this is the first one you've checked out, then make sure you subscribe and check out the series so far. There is more about the legal stuff. There is more about symbolic gestures, poems, readings, music, all these essential parts of your ceremony. And you can listen to them at your leisure. Perfect for your wedding planning. And we will see you on the next episode very, very soon.